Hello and welcome back to the making of Jareth's outfit from the ballroom scene in Labyrinth. So far we've made the slip, the corset, and now the petticoats. And now we're on to, well, at least for me, the exciting part for me, the main cosplay itself. So the outside fashion layers, so the black skirt, the blue jacket, the shirts, everything that you would just see. Because normally who's gonna see these when I'm out wearing cosplay? No one is gonna see them, but it helps give the shape and silhouette that I'm looking for. So that's one of the reasons why I did all of these layers. Obviously the petticoat just to help give a full. It's a ball gown. It needs to be full. There needs to be volume. Obviously I'm gonna do a petticoat either way, but I just wanted a slip and a corset just to help define. And then also the slip just as like a protective layer between my skin and the corset. So, on to the exciting part.
Just like with the petticoat, I'm not using a pre-made pattern to make my skirt. I did grab the pattern piece that I made for the petticoat so I could use that. It was too wide for the black fabric, so I ended up drawing a line along the edge and folding it over so I wasn't cutting the pattern piece itself. However, I didn't make any measurements to add more paper to the bottom, since I needed to make the pattern longer so the skirt could reach the floor and fully cover the petticoat. So I ended up just eyeballing it while I was cutting. Using the first skirt piece as a guide, I cut out 3 more skirt pieces before pulling a pocket pattern piece from a nearby pattern. I then proceeded to cut out 4 pocket pieces from the fabric. Using waistband pieces from a different pattern than the pocket piece, I cut out a waistband from both the black fabric and some interfacing. Then I cut all the notches and went to the ironing board to iron the interfacing in place. Now comes time for the construction of the skirt. With right sides together, I begin pinning each of the pocket pieces to the skirt pieces. Next, it was time to sew the seams of the pockets. Once that was done, I opened the pocket out and sewed a top stitch next to the seam, sewing through the pocket and the seam allowance below it. Then I pinned the side seams of the skirt pieces together, following the curve of the pocket, along with the top 2 inches of the pocket and skirt seam from before. Everything was then sewn in place. Both the 2 front seams and 2 back seams were then pinned and sewn together. However, one of the back seams was not sewn up all the way, as I left the top 4 to 5 inches unsewn. Next, I pulled out all the waistband pieces and pinned and sewed the side seams of both the inside and outside layers. The waistband ended up being too wide and tall for my needs, so after pinning the 2 layers together, I took my scissors and trimmed down my waistband to the desired size. The next step was to attach the waistband to the skirt. Using the interfaced version of the waistband, I pinned right sides together. Since I needed to gather the skirt, I first began by pinning the center front, side seams, and back opening together before gathering/pleating the rest of the skirt to match the length of the waistband. This was all done by hand. was time to sew the seam together. Before continuing with the waistband, I finished the raw edges of the opening in the back of the skirt. First, I folded over the edge, pinning the fabric in place as I went, before going back and folding the fabric over again, enclosing the raw edge in the seam. This was all then sewn in place. Next, I grabbed the non-interfaced version of the waistband and, with right sides together, pinned and sewed it to the waistband already attached to the main skirt. The waistband got flipped right side out, and the seam allowance along the bottom edge got folded under and pinned down. Then I began to slip stitch the waistband in place. Next came the time-consuming process of finishing the bottom of the skirt. First, I went around and folded up the edge of the skirt, pinning as I went. Then, just like with the opening in the back of the skirt, I folded the edge over again, keeping the raw edge of the fabric tucked inside itself. After all the pinning had been done, I went to my sewing machine and sewed to the hem of the skirt in place. The next step was to attach snaps to the back edges of the waistband. That way I could close the back of the skirt. Now it's time for the last step. After putting my skirt on my dress form, I put pins in the spot where I needed to put more hook fasteners onto my skirt so I can hook my skirt to the petticoat. Then I sewed all the fasteners in place.
Okay, so that was the making of the skirt. Out of everything so far, the skirt took me the shortest amount of time, which makes sense. It's very simple, just straight seams basically for the whole thing, except for obviously the hook and eyes that I did on the inside. Join me next time when I move to the shirt.